welcome back to the studio. Today we're going to do a little bit of Christmas in July. I have Howl-Lelujah. This is a pre-fused and laser cut applique kit. It is available on the Urban Elementz website. It's also in the Applique Elementz catalog. All of these fabrics are pre-selected for you. In the warehouse, in the manufacturing setting, they pre-fuse the back of the fabric with Steam 2 and then they laser cut it. So all you have to do is pull the applique pieces out of the bag and peel, place, and press. And I'll tell you, when you pull these out, smiles are going to come in all over your room from the kit. So I'm going to bring you in a little bit closer. I'm going to show you. Today I'm using just a white Kona background for the back of the fabric, but we'll spruce it up a little bit when we get to the inner and outer border. So I'll pull you in and I'll show you what's in the kit and how easy it is to put this together. You can see that my Kona fabric is bigger than my light box, so we'll have to move this around a little bit, but I can go ahead and show you what all is included in the kit. You do have to be careful. Sometimes there's little pieces that get caught in with the paper. The first thing I'm going to pull out is the color cover sheet, and this is really helpful when you have a lot of pieces that are the same size but different colors, and it helps you figure out which piece goes where. I'm just going to put that there, and it's a full color sheet and it comes with each of the patterns. The next thing I'm going to pull out is the pattern, and before I get started with that, I'm going to iron this with my dry iron just to get out any of these creases, because I don't want those to translate into me misplacing any of the pattern pieces even by a little bit. And then the last things that are in there are the instruction sheet and all of the applique components. And what I like to do is separate the applique components more or less in areas where they're going to be located, like all the feet together, all the leaves together, all of the musical notes together. So I'm going to take a minute to do that and iron my pattern, and then I'll go ahead and bring you back in, and it'll make more sense once we get started. The good thing about the Kona white is you'll be able to see the pattern underneath the fabric really clearly. What I'm going to do is I'm going to work on the top and then pull the whole thing forward and then do the alphabet at the bottom. That will leave me the whole center to be able to do all at once without having to move it again. So I'm going to go ahead and do these musical notes, and if I had ever taken band practice, I would be able to tell you what these musical notes were, but I did not. But I do remember a line from a movie. I remember this one time in band camp. Does anyone know that line? You can see this is very easy. We're just peeling off the backing of these applique shapes. They're already pre-fused with the Steam 2. All we have to do is position them as close as we can to the placement that we see on the applique diagram. If it's off a little bit, it's not going to matter, because the paper is not going to be there for anyone to judge us by when we're finished. Now these will all stay in place because they're tacky on the back, and they'll stay in place until we fuse it. But we do need to fuse this before we're finished, and that fusing process does need to include steam. So now these are stuck in place, and I'm going to grab the paper pattern and the applique, or the pattern and the fabric, and pull that forward and turn my light back on. And then I'm going to do the writing at the bottom, and then I can go ahead and focus on the center portion. And I'm going to come around this side, because if I try and stretch over, I'll end up knocking my back out of shape. So at this age, what we do is we move around. And I'm just going to pick up these pieces one at a time and find out where they go. the more you get down, the easier it is to find, because it's sort of like doing a puzzle where you do the outside pieces first, and then it's easier because you have fewer pieces left to do on the board. It's nice to work on projects like this as the year goes on. I remember last December I saw a lot of people posting pictures. Some people were posting Christmas quilts or vintage quilts in holiday colors every day of the month, and I was really jealous of that, and I told myself I wanted to do 2 Christmas quilts per month for the whole year, so that when Christmas came around again, I would be able to have a bunch of Christmas quilts to show. Now, of course, I haven't been able to keep that promise because so many things get in the way. Projects like this, you can go ahead and get that many things finished, but any other type of project like piecing quilts, it takes a little bit more time to do that. I think in the piecing category I've only finished 1. There's 2 versions of this. There's the Howl-Lelujah with the dog, and let's see. There's Santa Claus with the cat, and I'll do that one again. Well, not again. I'll do that one also at some point. Now I'm going to go ahead and grab the pattern and the fabric and pull it down, and get the dog and the bird centered in the light box, and then I can go ahead and start getting that done. Now, anytime we have a pattern piece that has dotted lines on it, we know that those pieces go underneath something else. And so that's one thing we have to keep an eye out for. And sometimes when I'm confused, I'll even look at the color cover sheet, and that helps explain things also. I'm going to start all the way at the top with the nose. Looks like the body goes under a great many things. The nice thing about this, if you accidentally get something in the wrong position, you can always lift it up. Trying to figure out, I think these are the ears, so I'll do those next. And now I can do the legs. These are also a darker color. It's nice having the pieces laser cut. It's a lot better, gives you a much sharper edge than cutting with scissors at home. It's even sharper, I believe, than any kind of laser cutting machine or cutting machine that we would have at home, because you're dealing with a much sharper system. If you can't see through some of your pieces, you could always just lift up the background fabric and take a glance at it. As long as we could get it as close as we can to the right place, then we know we're doing good. We've got our 4 feet, and so we can put our feet in place now. You can see just how easy these are to reposition. I'm looking at a funny angle down the line here, so it's hard for me to see the very bottom. Another great thing about this particular pattern is it's not done in completely all of the same traditional fabrics, colors that we normally think of as Christmas. It does have a little bit of red and green in it, but it's not completely red and green. So that is a nice little twist for the non-traditionalist, but it still has red and green for those who do like the tradition. Has holly as well. If you have small kids in the house, they could also use these applique pieces with the backing still on it as a puzzle, and just put the pieces on the paper pattern as a puzzle piece. And that can be something fun for them to do. If they're a little bit older, they might even be able to help you peel the pieces off and put the appliques in place. This is probably one of the smallest pieces in the whole kit. It's a little bird beak. And because my thumbs are big, it's one of the hardest pieces for me to get into place. I have done quite a few of these little chickadees, so I'm familiar with all the components. It's almost a mascot of the applique Elementz, this little bird. If it's not the mascot, it should be. You can see how quickly this goes together because we're doing it in real time. Let's see. What color is, okay, it's green. And we have a little wing. So we've got the bird done. Now what we have left is to put the head on, the nose on, and the last few pieces of the ribbon and the holly. And some of that will be easy. I'll have to take a good look where that neck piece goes of the ribbon. I can see through some of these pieces where the leaves go. And I can see that I've put the color wrong, so I can move that really easily because these are repositionable. And we're down to the last two pieces. And this one I can't really see where it goes, so I'm just going to eyeball it. And I'm going to come around to the front and see where this one goes and peel that off and place it. And then I'm going to remove the light box and get ready for fusing. Okay, I've flipped it sideways so I can get all my ironing done in one go, and I've checked over everything just to make sure it's where I want it, because remember, at this stage we can still reposition things if we want to. And I'm straightening out my little chickadee's legs. I didn't want her to be bow-legged. I will tell you that the eye on any of these ultra suede pieces are a little bit thick, and because they're thicker and they're small, it's a small piece of Steam-A-Seam 2. So you have to watch these, make sure they don't get lost before you fuse them. And you also want to make sure that you give the iron time to penetrate the the ultra suede to get down to that fusible. So I have everything in place as I want it. So now I'm going to go ahead and spritz the applique with my spray bottle. This is just plain water. Remember that Steam-A-Seam 2 has the word steam in the name. That's an indication that steam is absolutely required for the bonding process. Just like concrete requires water to set up, Steam-A-Seam 2 also requires water to activate the fusible. So now I'm going to go ahead and place on top of this my Teflon pressing sheet, which will hold all of my pieces in place and keep them from harm while I'm fusing. The Teflon pressing sheet keeps my iron clean so the fusible doesn't seep around the edge of the applique and get on the sole plate. The Teflon pressing sheet also keeps anything from my sole plate from transferring onto my project. Remember, this background is a pure white Kona, and any kind of smudge or transfer from the iron would certainly be hard to get off and would show. Also, the iron kind of insulates, make sure that I don't scorch the fabric from ironing too long. But keep in mind, you cannot over iron or over fuse Steam-A-Seam 2. It's not going to evaporate. The number one issue with most people is that they didn't fuse long enough or with steam or moisture of some kind. They underfuse, and if you are getting gumming on your needle when you're quilting or top stitching, that's an indication to you that the fusing process wasn't done adequately. So next time you work with Steam-A-Seam 2, you'd want to remember to go a little bit longer, or to make sure that you use steam so that all of that can be permanent. Keep in mind also that many of these areas had multiple layers of fabric in Steam-A-Seam 2. So you have to let the moisture and the heat penetrate through all of those various layers. Once we get this fused from the top down, I will then flip the block over and I will re-moisten it with the spray bottle, and I'm going to fuse it again from the bottom side down, just to make sure that we get all of that fused properly. But you could see just how quickly we could get a holiday project going. All we'd have to do next is quilt this. And because it's a wall hanging, it really would require minimal quilting, because it's not going to get as much wear and tear as an actual quilt would get. This would make a great Christmas gift. It would make a great project to do with friends on a night, maybe when you were doing a cookie exchange or something else. You could have some of these small kits ready, and you could do them with friends and do them as an exchange. So I'm going to go ahead and finish pressing this out, and when I get it done, I'll show you the finished results. Hallelujah! This one's finished. They're doing they're doing road work outside. They've been digging up the street and putting new asphalt down. I've heard it if, no, I won't say that. So this one's finished, but I do want to go ahead and put an inner border and outer border on it, I think. I think what I'm going to use for the outer border, so I'm going to go ahead and get that pulled out and try and put that on today. One thing I would tell you, if you have any doubt about your applique being fused properly, is after it cools down, go around with your finger or your fingernail and just try the edges of the pieces and see if any of them come up a little bit. If they do, go back and fuse those pieces, because you want to do it now before you get it on the long arm or you get it under the machine all crinkled up, and find out that you didn't do it good then. So this is the easiest time to correct that mistake. So I'm going to go ahead and pick out some fabric. I don't know if you noticed, but my background is a little bit bigger than what the pattern called for, but when the pattern was being made, they were focusing on the applique. I also like to focus on the quilting pattern as well, and so I like to give it a little bit more space to have that show up. So my background is a little bit bigger because I'm thinking about both the applique and the quilting portion of this. So I'm going to leave that a little bit bigger as it is, and I'm going to go ahead and get that inner and outer border on if I can find them. Well, I went ahead and got my inner and outer board cut. Well, I went ahead and got my inner and outer borders cut and applied to the block itself. Now, the block is what helped me inform my decision in picking my fabrics. When I think of the dog howling in the Howl-Lelujah, I think of a dog howling at the moon. And so that helped me pick the outside border. The inside border, I wanted something that had pops of color and that brought in a lot of different colors. So I used the rainbow stripe, and that was facing this way to break up the block and the outside border. I didn't want to have to miter these little tiny inside inner borders, so I used a setting stone, a cornerstone, and I just used a red that would pick up the color of his scarf. When I was younger, as I said, I grew up in the Midwest, and I was in the Boy Scouts, and one of the badges that we earned was a polar bear badge, and to earn that we had to go camping in a tent in the middle of winter, in the snow actually, and we did that, and it was really cool because I was camping was my neighbor, my best friend at the time, and I remember it started to snow while we were there, and we were in our sleeping bags, and I was laying on my back, and I stuck my head out the tent and was just looking straight up, and the night sky was pitch black because we were so far out in the country, and all you could see was white dots like this when they would get close enough to hit you in the head. And so when I think of winter night sky sometimes, this is what it reminds me of. So this is what I chose. So this is pretty well finished until I get it quilted. As I said, I wanted to leave some blank space, a little bit extra around the applique to give room for the quilting to show up, but I haven't even begun to choose a quilting pattern yet. So we'll have to wait and see what that's going to be. In the meantime, I'd like to thank you for stopping by the studio today while we put together Howl-Lelujah, and I look forward to getting it quilted. I look forward to seeing you here again next time. Until then, take care of yourself and take care of each other.